Okay, so thank you for tuning in. This is my Spiritual Sense YouTube as well as my podcast. So, the topic that I'm going to speak on today is deception of spirits. Now, I don't want anybody to feel as though I'm judging them, looking down on them, and things of that nature. These are my opinions. Um, the opinions of myself. We all have opinions. I decided to put mine in a format on a Spreaker Studio podcasting. I do have some things on here that may be of interest to you. I do have other podcasts and other episodes that may be of interest to you. So I try to keep them, in a chronological order and give a little bit more clarity, so you will, if it's something that may be of interest to you, then it's there for you to listen to. Okay, so I wrote down a couple of notes earlier today in relation to what I was going to speak about today in terms of my spiritual sense. And it came across the biggest trick the devil ever pulled. Deception of spirits. So I said, okay, let me put this in a podcast and speak on this topic today. Because one thing I find is that podcasting is very therapeutic for those individuals out there. It's very therapeutic. And if God unleash and unveil things on your heart to get out, it doesn't hurt to, get a journal and begin to journal, or even, begin to do a podcast, or even, some type of video webinar, as I'm doing now, to get a count of what your eyes see and what presents to you. And I typically watch, a lot of the old programs from the 80s and the 90s and stuff. And I could just sit here and it just unleashed and unveiled to me, you need to get this out. You need to speak on this particular topic because this is what you need to talk about. And so what I began to understand and know is this. What we have been told in terms of spirit and spirituality is not the truth. I don't have to, this is not something that you could just go to a book and read about, or you can just, oftentimes the average person won't be able to describe it to you or even tell you. But when you begin to speak, and we all, gonna use the same cliches and catchphrases and things of that nature. I understand that, but this is beyond that. This is when you're able to grasp and speak almost verbatim what a lot of these songs were saying that you hadn't even heard before. Watching programs that you don't remember. And people would say this is the memory coming to the forefront. No, it's not. It is the Spirit of God coming to the forefront. Because what you will begin to understand is this is how God happens. This is it. This is how it works. And the Spirit would channel through many people. I've been trying to reach you years ago when you was a little girl or a little boy. And now you will begin to see, as they say, clearly. Now the eyes will begin to see. As they mentioned, hindsight is 20/20. Things that you seen back then will become, as you get older. Because you will begin to speak those same things. Things that you just laughed off, really didn't give much inclination or thought to, you will begin to understand it. Like you will begin to feel it. And you will begin to know. This is how God happens. This is how it is. So, in this particular episode, with the deception of spirits, I got manipulation. So you will begin to see that oftentimes the spirits has a very tactful, manipulative way of doing things. And I will give a little bit more clarity. So I have a background in healthcare. I've been licensed since 2003 as a licensed practical nurse. And earlier today, I watched, and I'm not even going to go into details because I don't want no hate mails and, all this type of stuff, or offending people and things of that nature. But I began to watch a program where an actress is suffering from a particular ailment. And as I'm sitting here looking at this actress, God started putting things into my being as to what that is. I mean, off the bat. And so that's when I began, and I got compelled to just start writing stuff down. Just write. And so I'm going to tell you what my inclination of what is going on with this person. Now, I'm not a doctor. I do have the healthcare background. Not a doctor. Okay? But some things you don't have to be a doctor for. When God has you know how you hear the term about auras? Like you could begin to see auras on people, and some people can see auras on people. I call it spiritual countenance. Like you could be looking at a person and they can remind you of, like you could look at a woman and she has a masculinity type of essence about her. And that to me in turn lets me know this woman thinks as a man thinks. Or you can look at somebody and all of a sudden it's kind of like their spiritual realm or something around them will begin to give off a feeling of an old co-worker. Or, it could be something very significant about that person. It could be 6 months, even 5, 10 years down the road, you would get that same inclination like this person, I know this is this about this person because that aura. And it's hard to explain it. Like you can't put words to it. It's just it's different than somebody reminding you of somebody. It's far more than that. It's far more than, like, we all get, to where we's like, oh my gosh, she reminds me of such and such. But this here is the spirit. It's like the reading of the spirit. Like this person will begin to remind you their aura of somebody that they don't look nothing alike. And it's hard to explain. So, anyways, watching that program earlier today is what sprung me into deciding to do this podcast, this episode, Deception of Spirits. And I'm going to explain to you what I felt the situation was with this person. So being in the entertainment industry, I do feel like, you have a lot of spirits and demons and, that's life. You're going to deal with demons no matter where you go. You could be in the church hall. I mean, I feel like even in the church hall, you have probably the most demons there. Because you got all walks of life in there. The same as in healthcare. You got all walks of life there. So, when I say the manipulation of spirits, okay, so be it may, this person was inflicted with a debilitating disease. And this person, life has been sidetracked ever since this particular person, was diagnosed with this disease. So I didn't really pay too much attention to the program before it began to resonate in my spirit. And that's when I said, this is a demonic spirit, is what this is. It doesn't take a scientist to know that. It doesn't take an exorcist to know that, a demonologist. This is a demonic spirit. And that's when I began to say, okay, biggest trick, deception of spirits. So what you will begin to see is that when those spirits take over you and they can inhabit you, it would appear as though this is what it is. Because see, oftentimes when people see debilitating diseases and ailments, they begin to feel empathy and sorrow. And I'm not saying you shouldn't feel empathy and sorrow for people that are suffering debilitating illnesses and diseases. But you will have to understand you cannot entertain those spirits, because it's a demonic spirit is what it is. It's a demonic force and a demonic spirits. And when you begin to typecast God and put him in a box, or to limit his capabilities, well, then that's where you're going to be at. So I began to, first, after the program was going on, a little further along, that's when it became apparent to me somebody sought this person up. Plain and simple. And I feel like this person has got a hold to some bad product, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to say product, quote unquote. Some bad product. So as I continue along and watching this program, I wrote down exaggeration. You will begin to see that a lot of times those ailments are exaggerated to bring awareness as to what is going on around the surface of a particular thing. We don't know what that is. So I did a podcast when I mentioned about the Jesus agenda. Oftentimes you will be the example or the forefront or the weakest link for whatever is transpiring within your region, location, family, city, or state. And so when people are using you and are looking at you and studying you, you have to be very careful as to who you affiliate with and the things that you do, because everybody is not your like mind. They can look like you, but they can care less about you. And you will begin to see how demons and spirits really work, and what a lot of them was talking about when they wrote those verses in those biblical texts. Some of the similar things that occurred now occurred then. And the devil's biggest trick is to make you feel like it's all in your head, and you're the only one that feel these thoughts, and you're the only one that dealing with these things. That is a lie. Suffering. So this is another thing, that deception of the spirits. When there is a constant need to prove something and feeling that you need to suffer. This is based on what this person has done. And this is what this person is bound by. And this is what fear has this person typecast as, set as. Because of my wrongdoings and the things that I have done, now I feel obligated to control everything. And this is what I have endured. So you will begin to understand that a lot of times, as I mentioned in the tarot reading that I just did, if a person has religious upbringing, many of those people will use shame, guilt, and fear and scare tactics to control and manipulate people. They would do it. So that's why I say empathy and sympathy, questionable. So as I continue to watch the program, I said this right here is attention seeking. That's not to say that some of these things that I see before my eyes are occurring. But if you give power to it, then that's going to be your reality, is what that is. Because that's oftentimes how they control you. This is oftentimes how they reel you in and to control you. And so this is what I was compelled in my third eye as I'm sitting here and I'm watching this program. And I said to them, I said to myself, I believe this person has got a hold to some bad product. And I'm even in question of a lot of the product that is out here. Then I began to think of ancient times, like maybe 1,000 years ago or even 500 years ago. So a lot of times when we watch a lot of these biblical or religious movies and things of that nature, we want to think of these people as being holy, and they just sat around and they held hands and prayed to the skies up above. No. These people did some of the same things that you see here in everyday walk of life. And you would be very surprised. This is the Satan's or the enemy's biggest trick, is to make you feel as though, they was just perfect back then and they did no wrong. That is a lie. They drug traffic. They also sex traffic back then, even in biblical times. And so I propose a lot of those things are being discovered. But for the dignity of a particular group of people, they have been told, you don't report these things because people don't know these findings. I propose a lot of these pharmaceutical products are testing to see, okay, is this product safe? Because I do believe that even back in ancient times, they drug traffic. I do. Who's to say that a lot of that product ain't being used now? Who's to say that? May not necessarily be ancient time. Could be 500 years ago or 400 years ago. So it became apparent to me that this person is suffering from a anaphylactic allergic reaction to some bad product that she has received. Is what I feel. And then it began to attack her mind and turn attack her body. That's what I feel. I'm not going to go into specifics as to who I'm speaking about, but this person needs to be watched. And oftentimes when a person needs to be on camera, it's because they need to be watched. Everything about them needs to be watched, from what they eat, what they drink, where they go. And when you begin to see how life happens as it is, you will begin to understand why a lot of people get into the entertainment industry. They need to be watched and studied, because if you look at the background of where a lot of these people come from, some of these people come from towns where they had something beyond something that was deep rooted. Something that was deep rooted, a dark little kept secret that was deep rooted within that town that they don't want people to know. But it became apparent to me that this person has had an anaphylactic allergic reaction to some bad product. Is what that is. And inflammation comes by way of the what? Of the immune system attacking itself in response to a foreign substance, particularly a bad adverse reaction to a foreign substance, is what I feel. It's honestly what I feel. I don't have to go to doctor school to know that. If God wants me to know something, I promise to God He's going to lay it on my heart. Now, hear me out. Hear me out and hear me well. I have a few bad habits that I need to break. the smoke, and I pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. But this is what God wanted me to put out there. He said these are deceptions, deceiving spirits. He said, get it out that these are deceiving spirits. The same spirits that presents today presents back then. They drug traffic, they sex traffic, they child traffic, they human traffic. They did some of the same demonic things that you see here, they did them back then. They was vultures. They was like lions in a den. They was like, unruly scavengers in the wild. These are these similar spirits from a time before. If you go back and listen to one of my podcasts that I did, and I want to say it's the podcast I did on spiritual warfare. This is exactly what it is. Spiritual warfare. Here is no differently. And you will be very surprised of how to maintain their dignity, meaning to keep people from knowing them. They will put it in your insight to deceive you and to confuse you that they holier than thou, they mean no wrong, they was perfect, they didn't curse, they didn't do anything. These are these same spirits from long time ago. And you will know them. You will know a deceptive, lying, deviant spirit. God will have it in their countenance. They could say one thing, you will be able to read their countenance. This is a demonic spirit, is what this is. This is a demonic spirit. And not to necessarily say that it's that person, because I feel like what happened to this individual was to humble her. Not to say that she, didn't enable it, but I feel like it's things that she's done. I also feel like it's her own mindset and her guilt and shame that's helped perpetuating that as well. Because sometimes you could be sensitive to something. We all would take some, medication that may be a day or so, off. But your own mindset and your spirit being will help perpetuate those things. Okay? So I just needed to get that out in terms of the devil's biggest trick of convincing the world he did not exist, deception of spirits, manipulation, exaggeration, suffering, empathy, sympathy, control. These are the same spirits that presents before into the future, into now and will be into the future. This is the cycle of life. So, and how I know these things, because God will allow you to inhabit them. I mean, we all are susceptible, some more so than others. You will be able to know these demonic spirits because he will present them before you, and he will allow them to inhabit you so you can discern them. But that's exactly what that is. That's a demonic force and demonic spirit. That's not to say that, a person is not responsible for him or hers actions. No, not at all. So I'm going to close out this podcast, Deception of Spirits. So for those who will be tuning in or may be tuning in, I'd like to thank you for watching on my YouTube, Spiritual Sense, as well as my podcast, Spiritual Sense. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment section on the YouTube. Also on my Spreaker.com podcast, which is Spiritual Sense. Thank you for tuning in. Have a safe and wonderful day.